Hi, my name is Jason from Sow the Land, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how I made this pig shelter. Well, it's a pig shelter slash greenhouse slash compost corner that I built. We're on 1.5 acres, and we're getting ready to raise 2 pigs. This pig shelter measures about 32 feet long and 12 feet wide. This is a full video from start to finish on how I built this shelter. And if you stay tuned to the end of the video, I'm gonna share with you guys the cost of this build and my thought process on why I built the structure the way I did. And now we're raising pigs for bacon. And also our plans with this shelter on what are the next steps on how we're gonna use this to produce food for us this year. But let's get started. Super pumped. Let's get it going. I will leave links down below in the show notes of some of the materials and tools I used to make this build. This structure is made out of fencing posts, which you can get at the local hardware store such as Lowe's or Home Depot. And here I'm cutting these posts in half, and these are the posts that I'm going to be driving into the ground. And these are pretty easy to cut. I just had a Sawzall with a metal cutting blade on it. This is a pipe bender that I got that I just drilled to the back of my garden shed. So it has to be 9 inches from the end point here, and that's the part that's a little bit skinnier than this part. So after you make that first bend, you move the pipe about every 18 inches, and then you pull down to bend it. It sounds like it would be hard, but it was actually really easy to bend these pipes. Now these are the posts I just cut, and I'm driving them into the ground. I think this one will work better. It's magnetic. This 2x4 is 12 feet wide, and it's helping me out space the poles apart. Now when you do this, you want to make sure that the screw is not sitting directly on top, because if you put plastic over on top, you have a chance of the plastic actually ripping from the screw. I'm using a long measuring tape and measuring out about 32 feet long, and there's no really real reason why I made it 32 feet long. 12 feet long, I figured it's just easier to back my truck up if I was loaded with wood chips and I could just back in. Now I'm driving it in about 20 inches. The ground here is really clay-like and really compact, so I feel like it shouldn't have any problem like digging in the ground and not wanting to come up. But the 32 feet long, I actually probably should have made it 30. I just felt like it was good enough for a pig shelter or a greenhouse. When placing the round poles into the posts, it would be a lot easier if you had 2 people doing this, because there was a lot of going back and forth and just kind of wiggling the posts into the ground posts and then moving back and forth and trying to fit it all in. But it wasn't too bad if you're doing it by yourself. I'm gonna have to cut a little bit off here on the baseboard, and that's because you don't want this ending on a pole, because we're gonna drill into here in each pole, and then it's gonna get another baseboard here, and then we're gonna connect these two. Now I could go return a bunch of these, or I could just cut it off. Now for the baseboards, I chose to use untreated wood. So this is just regular pine wood. That's because it's going to be in contact with the ground, and I just didn't want some any kind of weird leakage from the treated wood, that if you would use that. All right, baseboards are in. Now we got to do the ridgepole. Now all these poles are straight from the hardware store, except for like the fasteners, like these straps. These are not. And I'll leave a link down below where you can purchase these. The bolts go underneath here, and the strap on the hoop up top here. Both these straps hold this in place. Here I'm a little short by like 2 feet. This is the end wall. If I would have planned it better, I would have put the end wall a little bit in, like 2 feet in. Before you put the posts into the ground posts, it's important to mark out how high you want to put them in there. And here I have them about 9 inches into the ground posts, and I marked it just with a marker, and then I'm drilling them all in so that way they just stay put. Now this is called a hip board, and these hip boards I decided to use treated wood because I wasn't too concerned about it, because it's not going to be in contact with the ground. And you pretty much install the hip boards just like how you did the baseboards down below. So that 2x4 is in, and then here I'm gonna build a doorway. Now you can make this as wide as you want it, and as tall as you want it, but I'm gonna do it a little bit over 3 feet so that way a wheelbarrow can go in if I needed to. For this, I made sure I put a level on it to make sure it's straight up and down, and then also this opening is 38 inches, and so I make sure that up top is also 38 inches. In this measurement, I just draw a line where I want to cut it. And these are the pocket hole screws. It has a head here that'll grab a lot better and make the joint tighter. It goes into there, and then it screws it on the other side. Here I'm making a wall just using 2x4s and some screws, and I'm just drilling right into the structure and mounting the 2x4s to that. And just making sure everything just square as much as possible. It's not going to be perfect, but trying to keep it square is important, and using a level helps with that. And after I put in the middle wall, I did the exact same thing on the end wall. And then Jonah, my farmer friend, came by and helped me out a little bit with this end wall piece. Now here I'm making the doors. I need to make 2 doors, and I'm making them using a Craig jig, which is a pocket hole jig, and using some screws and some glue and putting it all together. Now this structure might be good enough just adding the tin and not adding any cattle panels or hog panels, but just to be safe, I also didn't want the tin to get all dented up. You know, I still wanted it to look nice, and so I added the cattle panel and the tin and then just tied it all up with some zip ties. Now the zip ties are 2 purposes. For one, I can take off the cattle panels if I wanted to and it'd be fairly easy. And then also, I could have drilled right into the structure and drilled it to the poles, but I also didn't want to put a bunch of holes in the structure. So that's pretty much the base, the bones of the structure. And at this point, it was pretty much done except for the covering. All right, so now for the top of this shelter, I'm gonna use a tarp. This tarp is 20 by 40. I'll put a link down to all the tools that I use down in the show notes where you can buy this tarp. All right, so the idea is we have these channel locks in here, and then this is a wiggle wire. When we pull the tarp, it's gonna lay right on this, and then we're gonna put the wiggle wire in there, and it just snaps in. Pretty easy to do. And then once it's in, that's gonna hug the tarp inside this channel lock and make the tarp tighter. So I have this channel lock here, and then I have this channel lock on the ends here, and hopefully we could work it all together and tighten it all. And you know, that's the idea. Let's see how it goes. I'll explain at the end of the video why I use this tarp rather than greenhouse plastic. And I was planning on putting on this tarp all by myself, but I'm incredibly thankful we had family down that week, and so they helped us with this tarp, and it was a lifesaver. Let me tell you, it's best to have 4 people to do this if you're gonna do this yourself. I probably could have done it myself, but it just would have been a lot easier. if you had more people to help you out. There's going to be a lot of adjusting this tarp. You have to make sure it's tight and make sure it's all even all the way around. These channel locks are incredible. They definitely keep the tarp really tight. It should not have any kind of problem of ripping off from there. And the best thing about these channel locks is that it does not put a hole in the tarp. It keeps the tarp intact, so I can just undo the channel locks and take off the tarp if I wanted to. If you had a couple guys to help you out with this, you could probably knock this whole structure out in maybe 2 days. To be honest, it took me longer to edit this video than it did to actually build this structure. To make the doors even more durable, I added, with some 2x4s, I just added a lock that went all the way across. Pretty simple, nothing fancy. Alright, so that's it. This is our pig shelter. So the next steps with this pig shelter is we need to get some wood chips. The reason why I made it this length is to bring wood chips in this area. It's important for this setup to have the wood chips dry. Basically, this area is kind of like a little garage for wood chips. It's going to store the wood chips here and then use them for the pig area. So we're going to fill up the mulch or wood chips in here. I'm going to put a nice big thick layer of wood chips at first, and then as the pigs start pooping, we're going to cover it with wood chips. It's going to create compost for our garden. We're also going to be growing bacon. We're only on 1.5 acres here, so I do not have the luxury of running the pigs and leaving them in one spot for too long. We don't have forests or anything like that. And that really is the only reason why I have this structure. If we had more acres, I would not even make this structure. This structure is really trying to do it on small scale. So they're gonna be in here a lot of the times, but I do plan on running them out on our hill we have out here and using some of the grass areas to clear out some areas that we wanna get cleared out. Now I'm just adding simple little clamps here, some spring clamps all the way down. And that's just to get some more airflow into this structure. And also we want the wood chips to stay dry in there as much as possible. So when it gets really crazy sideways rain, I could always let these down and so it could block some of the rain. Another thing you could do is put a pole all the way down inside there and roll it up into the pole. I'm using zip ties to tie these cattle panels together, and that's because in case I ever want to convert this into a greenhouse, I could just take all the cattle panels out. I could leave this, I could take this wall out and move it on the other end, or take it out completely. And also, if we ever move from this place, we can take this entire shelter with us. We could take it all apart and take it out and move it to a different location. I do not plan on having pigs year round, and I might, after the pigs are out of here, take this tarp off, put a greenhouse plastic, spread out the compost that we made, and start planting food right here. And yes, I did cut down all the screws. I doubled up on some of the locking mechanisms here. That is in hopes that as the pigs push this out, which they might, it will hold it in place. I dug this bar into the ground, so just added some little bit more protection. Guys, I've never raised pigs before. I'm kind of scared about it. I don't know. I'm just going. You know, I'm just moving forward here. I'm just moving forward, trying to figure this stuff out. I kind of feel like this is like, what is this? King Kong gonna be in here? What's happening? All right, so let's talk about the cost of this build. This build cost me about $1,300. The most costly thing of this build is the posts, all the metal posts. That was about $400 or $500 alone just for that. Now the reason why I went with the tarp instead of greenhouse plastic is because greenhouse plastic is really expensive. Priced it out for this size, it would have cost me about $400 just for greenhouse plastic. And I'm still not sure if that's the route we want to take with this build. As far as later on, I like having the option of switching out the tarp and adding greenhouse plastic if I wanted to turn this into a greenhouse. I figured let's just start with the tarp. It's white, so it reflects the sun out, and it will keep the pigs in shade, and it will also keep them cool in the summer. And when the time comes, I can always switch out the tarp for the plastic. So this shelter is really how you would build a high tunnel or a caterpillar tunnel greenhouse. And I got these from plans from the Bootstrap Farmer website. I'll leave that link down below. And I'll also leave a link down below of the materials I used here. So this build is really based off of my friend Justin's, his pig shelter. I helped him convert a carport into a pig shelter last year. This was kind of based off of that idea, but I thought I really didn't want to do a carport. I wanted something dual purpose. And the pig area I made a little bit bigger, which ended up being about 16 feet by 12 feet. But if this is your first time watching our YouTube channel, please hit that subscribe button because you do not want to miss some of the content that we're going to be putting out this year. This is our first year that we're going to be raising pigs. I don't know if this is going to work for us, guys. I don't know. For one, I don't know if I'm going to like raising pigs, right? I do not know if the structure is even going to work for us. You know, there's so many what ifs. But we're documenting it here on our YouTube channel, so you don't want to miss some of this content. And the next step is pigs, which I believe is the next level of homesteading. But I appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you guys next time.